Now we're going to get into the obesity side of things and some myths, and also the diabetic side of things. Because there's something people use, a metric people use, and that metric relates to getting a piece of food and setting fire to it. And that's a calorie. A calorie is a unit of heat. That's all it is. And we really have been using it the wrong way, because as you can see, food doesn't enter our body and gets combusted, basically. There's a lot of biochemical reactions, and there's a lot more to food than just the heat it produces. So when people talk about calories, they're always talking about energy. It fuels our body. But is that what calories really are? Well, no, what about calories from protein? So this is where I was talking about digging deeper. The calories from protein don't provide energy unless there's some real extreme situations. So protein calories make up structures in the body. So your hair, your nails, gut linings, red blood cells. I always say about the red blood cells from my phlebotomy training. We make 2 million red blood cells every second. So that's a lot of protein. So when you're eating something with protein and you're looking at the calorific intake from protein, you can't just think that's going to be burnt for energy, because it's going to be making stuff. And also, if we did break things down into protein, carbs and fats, is that enough when you're looking at it? So here's a donut. Now, I would imagine there's not many people looking at that and thinking, well, if I look at my little tracker, it says it's got some fat in it. I'm sure this donut has healthy fat. I'm sure the carbs are really good carbs, and I'm sure the protein is going to be really good at making things in my body. I don't think many people would think that. Then you could look at something that's nearly twice the calories. And then if you only think about calories, you think, well, this must be really bad. And I've deliberately picked something that I wouldn't eat unless you took the bun and all the veg off and just had the burger. But just to get the point across, this might have better carbs, for instance, because it's not a donut. So you can see it's got lettuce, it's got onion, it's got tomatoes. So some people might say, well, those carbs are actually better than the other ones, even though it's twice the calories. Maybe this is healthier. And because it's a beef burger, or hamburger, as some people call it, you know, in the middle, there's 19% protein, and even McDonald's claims to have 100% beef. So maybe that protein is better. So I try to get people out of the way of thinking about calories, going back to the digging deep, do some thought experiments. Are calories that important? Do they make a big difference? Is it more about what happens in the body? So if you had 300 calories from salmon and 300 calories from a donut, I think you would be more hungry after the donut than you would be from the salmon, because it's got some healthy fats in there. There's no sugar. And I always say this to coaching clients who are obsessed with calories. You know, if you've got somebody in front of you that says they eat 2,000 calories of chocolate chip cookies, and the other person next to them says, oh, well, I eat 2,000 calories of beef and, you know, maybe some veg, the person eating the calories from beef and veg would probably look much healthier than the person with the chocolate chip cookies. So the reason I want to talk about calories is to put them on the back burner, so to speak. But let's quickly just say, how did we arrive at calories? Well, calories were actually invented to work out how good a steam engine was. And even today, this is what it is. It goes into a bomb calorimeter, which is a completely enclosed space, completely locked in. They put a little bit of food into this container, and then they set fire to it. And once the water surrounding it goes up 1 degree centigrade, they've worked out how much energy was needed to do that. Has absolutely zero in relation to what we just talked about. And you can have calories in coal. So don't recommend you eating 2,000 calories of coal. That's a real thing, by the way. And you can get calories from burning wood, but it doesn't emit any human nutrients. So calories, and I'm not the only one that thought this, calories aren't particularly good because it's not looking at the effect on your body. Okay, I'm not saying calories don't matter. I'm talking about energy. I think effective energy from food matters. And we also need to understand the effects on our body. And I wasn't the only one that thought that. This is not new. In 1981, a university decided to look at what calories were doing inside the body. What was the effect of food on the body? And they brought out the glycemic index. So this is sort of an admission that calories don't really cut it. I know this was designed for diabetics, but it also ties into obesity and actually maintaining a really good level of healthy weight. So that looks at how much your blood sugar level rises after eating particular foods, the glycemic index. Now, there should be another clue here, because the glycemic index only looks at carbohydrates. It doesn't look at fats and proteins, and there is a big reason for that. And we'll talk about that in a second. So the glycemic index, some people do use, and some people still believe in it. I see, you know, in the diabetic realm of my job, and if they can't get away from certain cravings from fruit and stuff like that, then they do at least try to look at those with a low glycemic index. But we'll come back to that. So that just proves really there were academics not thinking calories really did it. Let's go back to calories and looking at people with the view that a calorie is a calorie. And we'll look at 1,000 calories of carbohydrate. And the red at the top indicates how much energy is actually used by the body to digest and metabolize carbohydrates. So it's about 95%. So straight away, 1,000 calories of carbs are not 1,000 calories of carbs. It's called the thermic effect of food. It's 950. But look at protein. So protein, if you have 1,000 calories of protein, 25% of the energy obtained from the protein is actually gone straight away and just digesting it. So protein definitely seems to be a bit of an outliner. And fat is about the same as carbs. It is about 5%. So a calorie isn't really a calorie. There's a lot to it. And it also has effect on your blood sugar and insulin. Now, insulin is a hormone we'll be talking about in a minute and how it affects your fat storage. But if you look at this, basically carbohydrates have a huge effect on your blood sugar and therefore huge effect on your insulin. Protein doesn't have such a big effect. We will talk about protein in more detail and its production of gluconeogenesis and sugars it can produce, but that's in extreme situations. We'll explain that later. And fats hardly have any effect on your blood sugar or your insulin. So, is there a better way than calories? Well, I tend to think if you're looking for weight loss, if you look at effective energy available, that might be a way of thinking, well, what energy is going into my body and how much am I using? So going back to that 1,000 calories of protein, you could potentially have 750 kilocalories of effective energy. But does protein get oxidized for energy? No. The only time it really gets used for energy is in starvation situations. So protein, you have to calculate differently. Healing goes on. So if your body is starved, your bones need nutrients, your muscles need nutrients, and you start to eat a lot of protein, you might not lose weight, but you might actually lose size. So your belt might fit better, your trousers might fit better. You might look healthier. And that's because your body is taking in all the protein it can to repair you. And there's a thing called protein leverage in the body. The body has an appetite, and it has been proven in many clinical studies with actual people that protein seems to be the essential macronutrient that humans tend to gravitate towards to make sure that they've got enough protein. So if you have a low protein meal, you might want to eat again until you get enough protein. One of the studies was basically looking at like a set size meal, which had 30% protein compared to 60% protein for other people. And the ones that had the 60% protein overall at less of the containers of food compared to the ones with only 30% protein. So it did seem to be the body was looking for protein to get to a certain level of protein. It's very important to remember. So when you have a T-bone steak, what's actually happening is the amino acids, so proteins are made of amino acids, going back to the enzymes breaking stuff down and the stomach acid breaking stuff down, everything gets broken down into amino acids, so protein gets broken down. And like I say, it makes things in your body such as bone and muscle, and the fats get broken down. And not even fat is just used for energy, because you've got fat soluble vitamins, they're stored obviously in fat, cell membranes, and then you've got energy. And these are the two macronutrients that are essential. So when we say essential, that means the body cannot make them all, you have to eat them. The reason carbohydrates are not essential is because the body can make carbohydrates. So, for instance, when you are asleep, your liver is making carbohydrate. It's making blood glucose. So that's my little bit about how the body works. Now we need to look slightly differently. So I always think it's more relevant to talk about the effects of food on the body, all the way through the system, and actually, you know, how we digest, how we rest, when we eat, frequency. There's so many different factors we need to look at.